Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys an AFK money-making method for Necromancy, which is killing nightmare creatures. In the past, using Crypt Bloom armor was the best option for nightmare creatures because they do hit so hard, but I wanted to see what kind of gear setups would work with Necromancy because you can make really good GP per hour here, and if you can make it AFK, that is even better. So for this method, you will be able to make around 14 to 15 mil GP per hour, and it is fully AFK. For the XP per hour, you can expect around 1.1 million Necromancy XP per hour. There are a few requirements for this method, including 80 Slayer and the Children of Ma quest, which does have a lot of prerequisites, but those are the only hard requirements. Recommendations, especially for this method, you will want the Dwarven Cannon with the auto restocking feature. To get this feature, you will need to purchase it from the Artisan Workshop. You'll first need to get the Royale Cannon upgrade, which is 100% respect, and then another 100% respect on the Restocking Cannon. So in total, that will be 2 million smithing XP that you gain within the Artisan's Workshop. So that is one highly recommended item. It makes it much more AFK. It would also be good to have 99 Necromancy or higher. Overloads are highly recommended. It really improves your survivability at this method. And then you can use the Vampirism Aura. It is the preferred aura that I would suggest, but the Penance Aura is also really good. But the increased HP gain from the Vampirism Aura is quite helpful here because nightmare creatures, they hit really hard. The Scripture of Wen is also really good since the nightmare creatures tend to bunch up quite a bit, so will deal some pretty good AoE damage on them. I tested a few different setups, but this seemed to be the best setup for me. It is a lot of information on the screen all at once, but we'll start by looking at the gear setup. So you can see I was using the Vampirism Aura. I really recommend using this because you do need that passive healing. The Ghost wasn't quite enough, especially if I wasn't using any tank armor. So that's why you can see I do have 2 pieces of tank armor, but I highly recommend the Vampirism Aura. I did try it with the Penance Aura. It did somewhat work. It probably would work, but you can just use the Penance Powder as an alternative. It is a little bit more cost, but I do think it is worth it. You can see I do have the Zuck Cape. This is really helpful. And you can see I have Death Skulls on my ability bar, so I highly recommend having the Zuck Cape to optimize this method. I didn't do any testing without the Zuck Cape, but I would imagine it would still work. You can see I have the Blood Amulet of Fury, just a nice budget amulet that gives you some passive healing. I am using the Reaver's Ring, and for the Necromancy gear, I have the tier 90 tank armor for the helmet slot. I do have the first Necromancer robe top and robe bottom, which is fully perked out with just my standard best in slot perks for bossing mainly. I am using the Cinderbane gloves because nightmare creatures are poisonable, and I do have the Death Dealer boots for that second pair of tank armor, just for that increased dodge chance, and you also get just a little bit more tankiness to you. For the weapons, I was using tier 95 necro weapons and the Book of Wen, which is quite helpful since the nightmare creatures do tend to stack on top of each other, so when that procs, it's great. Looking on the right-hand side, you can see my inventory setup. I did bring the Enhanced Excalibur and the Elven Ritual Shard, only used sometimes. It doesn't really make it AFK if you are using it all the time, but I usually bring it for just about any method. I brought a Holy Overload, so overloads are really helpful. In fact, I found that you kind of need them. If your overload isn't active, your health does seem to dwindle a little bit, especially if you aren't using any tank armor. So I did test a method using full tier 95 Necromancy armor, and I actually died about half an hour in. So I do recommend having that tank armor and trying to make sure your overloads are active most of the time. It's usually fine if it does deactivate for a few minutes, but the overload, it is really important. I did bring my Nexus, which has all my necromantic runes, so you will need to bring those because you want to have darkness active at all times. It really helps with the method, and you will see your health start to dwindle if you don't use it. I did bring some cannonballs with the Dwarven multi-cannon. I did test out the Oldak coil, but the multi-cannon is much better just because it attacks the nightmare creatures from range, and you will get more kills per hour that way. I brought some super restores and some weapon poison, and some of the more important ingredients or items would be the penance powder, especially if you're using the vampirism aura. The rest of the items in there are just the different stackable drops from nightmare creatures, so it is nice to have those in your inventory already so you don't have to organize the loot while you're actually doing the method. As you can see in the bottom, that is my Revolution action bar. I use the Skeleton Warrior and Vengeful Ghost up front, so you will be spawning those and getting the Skeleton Warrior to use its command ability as well as the Ghost's command ability whenever possible. Death Skulls is next if you are using the Zuck Cape. If not, I wouldn't have it so far up on the action bar. Touch of Death, then Spectral Scythe. Spectral Scythe is going to be one of your main abilities for dealing the most damage. You will need to have it upgraded fully, so you will have all 3 versions of the Spectral Scythe because it does deal amazing AoE damage. I then have Soul Sap, Volley of Souls, and then Blood Siphon. And Blood Siphon is actually quite important for this method. It is at the back of this Revolution action bar, but it does actually get used about every 45 seconds to a minute whenever it's off cooldown, and it heals you right back up to full, so it's actually really important for this method. So those are the abilities that I have been using for this method. It's worked out quite well. I've been getting 60 kills per hour, or maybe a little bit over 60 kills per hour from my testing. So it has been a really great method and actually quite comparable to the magic method that we have seen in the past. So Muspas are located at the ritual site in the World Gate. You will be quite familiar with this area if you did complete the Children of Ma quest, which is required for the nightmare creatures. Now the setup for this method is quite precise. You'll actually want to place your cannon precisely where I have it here on this very tile. So I will just pick up the cannon to show you where exactly you will want to stand when you are going to place it. So if you stand right here and place the cannon, you will be putting it in the right spot, and then you can just stand right by this rock. That way only 2 of the nightmare creatures will be able to hit you at once, so it will decrease your damage taken. Then you can just stand right next to the cannon, turn it on, make sure your auto retaliate is on, and have the action bar that I mentioned previously on Revolution Plus, and then you're set. You can just AFK. You will want to have protect from ranged or deflect from missiles on, because nightmare creatures, they do have a special attack, which is a ranged attack, and if you don't have protection prayers active for that ranged hit, it will deal a few thousand damage, so it is going to be a pretty big hit. That's why you want to have that on. And you can see that the Ghost is extremely helpful here. It is giving you a lot of passive healing. I also have the Vampirism Aura, which is healing me a bit, and the Darkness Incantation, which is helping prevent a few of the hits. And the method really is that simple from here. If you followed the gear setup and everything, then you can just AFK. It was completely AFK the entire hour I did it. You just need to open up the area loot and pick up the loot every 2 minutes or so before it despawns, and the method really is as easy as that. You will want to bring some magic notepaper just to note things like the dragon battle axes and a few of the potions that it drops, but it does drop a lot of other notable items, which in turn makes up for a lot of the GP per hour. You'll also be getting 1,750 Necromancy XP every kill. So overall, this is an awesome method not only to make some pretty good GP per hour as an AFK method, but also a good method to train Necromancy in general. Getting around 1.1 million XP per hour. It is a really good method, and one that I don't think a lot of people are doing. So anyway, I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you have any questions about the method, let me know in the comments down below and I'll try and answer them. And I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.